Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. We're looking for Mark Crossfield. Do we have anyone by the name of Mark Crossfield? Todd, first man in. How you doing, Todd? Trillium, Mike, Luke, Steve, Dave, Melissa, the Riddler. Mark Crossfield, there he is, right on time. Where is he? We're waiting for him to connect. There
Hello.
he is. Hello, Mark.
How are we doing, Andrew?
How's it going, my friend?
All good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, we're managing. We're managing. It's taxing though. I must say, it's not easy.
It makes you learn a bit about yourself in many ways, doesn't it? It makes you learn what you kind of don't need and desperately what you do need a bit as well, don't you think?
Most definitely, most definitely. I'm realizing that I need. My wife is also realizing that I need to work.
Yeah. She likes it when you go out of the house more.
This is true. This is true.
How is Terry? I hope she's all right. Hello, Terry.
She's doing great. She's doing great. Thanks, Mark. How's your family holding up? Okay.
Yeah, we're all doing good. We're trying our hardest to pull positives each day. So there are plenty of positives to be found, I think, at the end if you just try hard enough to look. There really is.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Awful situation, and it's globally horrendous, and I hope everyone is well and staying safe. But there are so many things you can learn. Like, this has to be the biggest social experiment of all time, if you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, what's happening to even things like global warming, like the way we impact the world in the last or in the coming month is going to be so different to how we impact it when we're running around burning fuel and all the rest of it. So yeah, I'm just trying to stay as positive as possible.
It's going to work out. It's going to work out. That's for sure. I think we just got to keep to keep our eye focused on that. You know, we'll get there. We're not sure when, but we will get there.
Absolutely. And hello to everyone in the comments. Thanks for joining in. Any questions I guess people can ask, and we'll try and answer at any time. And any golf pros, if you're golf pros watching, stay positive. But the other thing for me, for golf pros, any golf pros watching, and I've said it to a few that I've spoken, like, this is a great time for you, even though it's horrendous and, like, you know, your incomes might have stopped and there's lots of challenges. Like, don't turn off. For me, I'm trying my hardest simply to position myself so when the gun goes off and we're all allowed to back out again, I want to be stood at the front of that race when we get going. So I'm using this time as much as I can to just position myself, my business, where I want it to be. And hopefully they're thinking of doing the same. I was speaking to a pro the other day, you know, keep contacting your lessons, because they still want to see you. They just can't. Just remind them you're still there. Remind them that you're thinking about them. Do some tips and email them. Whatever way you can, just to remind people that you're still a golf pro and you're going to be a golf pro again, and you're ready for them when they all kick off. Because you know what's going to happen. The doors are going to open. Everyone's going to want to play golf. People are going to play bad. They're going to want your advice again and pay for it. So just you know, it's awful, but just try your hardest to position yourself into a better place that you were in before we came into this. Maybe I would like, that's my little.
I love that. I love that big picture advice that you're so good at sharing, Mark. That really is great. The thing I keep trying to remind myself is people still love golf.
Yeah.
They still want golf. They're sitting at home. They're bored. Give them their golf fix. They might not be able to go out and practice and play and watch competitive golf on TV, but they still love golf. That's not going away. If anything, that's ramping up.
Yeah, they're caged golfers, aren't they? At some point, we're all going to be released. Every situation history has shown us this does end. It's awful, but it ends. It peaks and then it goes, and we become who we are again. You know, just use this time to really assess what you're good at, what you need to get better at, try and work on what you want to get better at, and just put your business in a position where when the doors open, you're at the front of the queue running, not at the back still getting dressed thinking, oh, the doors are open. Oh, we're off again. Like,
I love it. That's such a great picture. That really, really is good. And I'm telling you, if you're a golf coach, that is, if you don't watch another single little nugget with Mark and I, and you don't watch anything else on social media, just take that and go, this is what I need to do.
Yeah,
fantastic
absolutely.
stuff.
Cool.
Mark, how can we fix the world of golf? You know, you had a great one when we were talking about what should we discuss, and you said, well, how much has golf instruction, golf coaching changed? And you know, I think of myself as a young coach working for David Ledbetter, what seems like 100 years ago, with the giant VHS camera on my shoulder.
Because how long have you been coaching for?
I've been coaching since the early 90s.
Okay, yeah. So I'm like 24 years I've been coaching golf for.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing journey of watching it develop and change, I think. Don't you think? It's been great. I've loved every minute of it.
Massive. I think golf instruction has gone leaps and bounds in the last 10 years.
Yeah, totally agree.
And people say to me, Andrew, who's your mentor? Who's your coaching mentor? And who do you pull the most from? And I say, the internet.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest changes, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
We're able to communicate. I didn't know who you were, and you wouldn't have known who I was before the internet came along.
Yeah.
And we're able to connect, share ideas, and then hopefully in some way push it forward by having some kind of voice out there for everyone to learn from and challenge us or not, and make their own challenges publicly as well. I think the internet has been, well, I mean, it's shaped my life, obviously, and my business is built around it. Like, I only saw the potential in it when it was starting to allow me to do things that only really TV producers and magazine editors and what have you have really controlled for so many years. So having that just blown wide open, like, I think it's like 12 years ago I started online now, was just so exciting. Like, it was the most exciting time for me as well. And obviously it was all around the boom of measuring devices coming along and information getting better by people who are far cleverer than me and yourself, you know, the scientists getting involved.
Yeah.
You know, having access to be able to listen and follow people like Eric and Paul Wood, Marty Jensen, people like that, and other people in the industry from Titleist, Callaway, Strix, and every company that I'm lucky enough to work for, is being so exciting to be able to not have to be so opinion based anymore and actually start working more on some measured facts. That's the other massive change I think that we've seen, that still saddens me a bit to this day, that we still have to have some conversations a little bit. But I guess that's just the nature of human learning. Not everyone's going to learn at once, but there are so many measured facts now which make it so much easier for us to help people, I think.
I agree. It is far less, I think this is the case, or it appears that this is the case. We now have the ability to measure it.
Yeah.
And if you are truly a passionate golf coach, then you're getting involved on places like we're currently involved with, Instagram Live. We're watching live feeds. We're talking with Sasha McKenzie. We're reading articles, those kind of things, and expanding our knowledge so that it's not just, I think this is the case. No, I know this is the case. I know this is going to happen. And, you know, I had Chris Como on earlier in the week, and I think it was the week, I'm not sure, lose track a little bit.
Yeah.
But Chris said, you know, we are simply problem solvers for the golfer. And there is no one right answer all the time. There is no one right answer. There might be multiple answers, but the better educated and the more knowledgeable we are, the better we're going to be able to solve this person's problem. 100%.
I always equate it a little bit to like when you're voting. Like, you need to know what the party's agendas are. Otherwise, how do you form your educated opinion? I need to know what the person who stands on the range and doesn't use a measuring device's ideas are and how it works and doesn't work for them. Well, quite equally, I need to know what Chris Como is saying, and I need to know what Sasha is saying. I want to know what Eric's saying. I want to know what everyone is saying. Yeah. And then it's much easier to then form that educated opinion and like build it up, hopefully behind some measured science. And that's the biggest thing that I've loved doing over the last 12 years is, like, I always think with my YouTube channel, it's as much my self-discovery as it is my quest to discover and then share. Like, you can see me learning in the videos, you can see me changing my mind as technology goes, actually you were getting that wrong, and that's, I think, such a great skill for any of the golf pros watching in the thread, and even people who are taking lessons in the thread who aren't golf pros. My best students are the ones who are able to drop the idea that they've got wrong, not the ones who fight me on it. They're the ones who are able to go, what, I don't need to work on my takeaway that I've worked on for 10 years? No, you don't. I've measured it and it's making no difference. You get the odd ones who fight that and you think, okay, this is a harder lesson, they'll take longer to learn. And you get the ones who are able just to dump it and try something different. And you think, you know, this guy or girl's going to get this quickly because they're able to just U-turn and try a different method. And it's the measuring devices that allow me to back up any facts that I show that person, to say that, like, this isn't a debate. Look, there's your shots when you do that takeaway, and there's your shots where you do that takeaway. They're exactly the same. So stop doing the same. We need different. I used to say that in lessons all the time. I used to say, people would say at the end of the lesson, so do you think I'm better? And I would say, well, I've measured that you're better. If you can play on the course and be better is now up to you. But I'll stand in front of 2 million golf coaches and proudly say, he said he wanted to hit a draw. He was out to win when he came in. He's now into out and controlled in the face of the ball. I'm quantifying why I'm taking money off this person. And that I used to find that so empowering, rather than in the days before that, it was a little bit like, well, I hope they're better. Where now I think you can just, you know, you can quantify it basically, which is exciting, isn't
it? They looked better. You can go, here it is. You are better. You are better. You're 8 yards longer. You went from fades to draws. Your trajectory is better. All of these things. That really is cool to do. Mark, one of the questions that flashed by that I thought was a goodie was, can you talk on your thoughts pertaining to block practice versus random practice?
I think that's well, I think it's so player specific. You know, I'm someone who would have been a heavy block practicer, and if I take things like my guitar, I'm a massive, like, when I used to play, I played in a band years ago, and I used to practice more than any of the other band members because I was the most unnaturally musical. Yeah. So I would have to really work to make sure I'm remembering the progressions and getting the notes where I want them. So I would have been, in that case, a huge block practicer to give me the confidence to then be able to perform that skill. And I took that to golf, which I think made me quite, you know, robotronic. If you look at my swing, it's quite natural and the rest of it. Yeah. But I do look back at myself now and I see it in lessons and think it would have been nicer when I was 15 for someone to get hold of me and go, block practice, great, helps your confidence, helps your mental state, that's all good. But you're not very good at drawing and fading it on purpose when you need to. That person stood over there who you compete against every week is, and that's why they're always edging you. So I think both sets of practice very much have their place. It's about dialing in to the personality of that student to make sure you're getting the most out of them. So my personality, you'd have been better off pushing, not block practice, because I'm going to do that anyway. Yeah. Where the other guy or girl who just practices every funky shot that's ever been designed, but then has a different grip every time and is a little inconsistent, you might think, well, actually, you might be better off having a bit of block and then a little bit of funking around. You know, it's making it work for the student for me. So I always think that question is, like with most golf questions, you've got to tailor it to that person, that personality, because that personality always comes through. The one thing you're not going to change with a student generally is their personality.
Not going to happen.
So you've got to work within it always. What about for yourself? How do you find you when you work with your
Mark,
students?
pretty much spot on. I think both genres are integral for all golfers. Exactly as you said, I would temper the percentages on either side to the particular golfer, and perhaps even to where that golfer is in their learning, in their changing. Do they have an event coming up? If they've got an event coming up, I would favor random. If they've just taken a lesson and they've got a bunch of time off, then we're going to do some block.
Yeah.
That's really, I do think block gets a bad rap simply because back in the old days it was, you know, here's a mountain of balls, go and hit those balls and you'll be better.
Yeah.
I think that is still to a certain degree required, perhaps not as the only form of practice.
Yeah, because it definitely was like,
yeah,
who's the guy stood out there in the rain on the practice area still beating balls? Oh, the guy who's going to win the tournament. That kind of cliche was very much around when I was a kid playing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just with the advent of information and information sharing, that's largely due to the internet, we have understood, we have changed, and I think we're starting to, as golf coaches, we're starting to share more along the lines of how can we prepare to perform? How can we bridge the gap from block to playing?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I mean, another point, which I've got a question in front of me here from Tom Duncan Golf, which was another point I wanted to make with where golf coaching has gone. Do you use stats with your students? Tom, I absolutely stress to the utmost how much stats and modern stats with strokes gained just can transform what you're working on in relationship to block practice or not as well works in. The biggest problem you have, and you've got to be a realist when you coach, like you can be morally on your horse, but that won't get through to some people, and your job is basically to get through to some people, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So you can be stubborn and not have a full diary, or you can bend and make people learn, and then you will have a full diary. So I know for a fact that there are some students who just will not use stats. It bores them. They don't want to collect them. My dad's a great example. Mark, when I first started doing some stuff with Game Golf, can you get me a Game Golf system? So similar to Arccos, I think, that Ping have started using now.
Yes.
And I got him one, and I knew he'd use it 2 rounds, and he used it 2 rounds. And it just because it's not him. He doesn't want to look at his phone. He doesn't want to come home and sit. And the idea, the concept of it, he gets the practicality of doing it. It's clunky, it's boggy.
Yeah.
It turns some people off.
Sure.
When I do content on strokes gained, it's amazing. The response is brilliant. I love it because you get the haters who attack it, and I just think, yeah, cool, I get that. You know, you don't want it to change. You want the secret to be in the dirt still, and that's fine. And then you get the ones who are more, you know, statistical, and they love it and they're really into it. I do think there isn't a student out there who couldn't learn from doing more strokes gained. I take it again back to myself. I would have always said growing up that my strongest suit is my driving, because I'm kind of a bit fairway findery. And the more I do strokes gained, my approach play is far better than I ever gave myself credit to. Like, it bails me out so much. Now, my approach play is decent because my driving is okay. So obviously I get a lot of goes at hitting it on the green quite close to my first. Yeah. But the approach play is generally the standout factor. And as a kid, I didn't practice getting quicker. I stood on a range, hit 7-iron after 7-iron after 7-iron after 7-iron, hitting positions, and then leading back to your block practice or not. You needed someone who was clever to come over and say, stop it in that 7-iron. You can do that. Let's get 30 yards on your driver. It's like, you know, so with the knowledge we've got now, I love it. I'm just so excited to be a coach because I just think there's so many golfers that I can help. Where when I first started coaching, I thought I could help everyone, but I didn't have enough tools. And I kind of now feel like I have enough to be able to help. And that's where I've seen the biggest change, I think, is just my toolbox has got so much bigger than it used to be. And you can't stress that to the golf pros. Just keep improving that toolbox, isn't it, really?
Keep growing it, keep expanding it. You know, if somebody came to me, Mark, and they said, listen, you know, I don't practice much. I want to lower my handicap. I want to lower my score. What you got for me? I would say go and get yourself involved in statistics, whether it's Arccos or Game Golf or Shots to Hole. There's so many options out there. Some of them are easier to use than others. And I think the thing that gets people down about stats is you got to write it down. Oftentimes on the old school kind of stats where you got to write it down, you know, and it's like you can't play golf.
Yeah.
Well, technology is getting to the point where it's making it significantly easier for golfers to just, you know, put something in your pocket, go and play, and at the end of the round, you can check it out.
Yeah.
But really, you're going to massively improve how you practice, and if you're strengthening your weak links when you're practicing, you're going to strengthen the whole chain, and that's how people are going to get better. They're going to start saving strokes straight away. It's easy, it's low-hanging fruit. Go get it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, back to that point for the coaches watching, I used to always have this in my head, because I love golf coaching, but I love business as well. I love the art of trying to make as much money and give the best service as you can to people. And golf pros sometimes are a bit scared to say. I used to say that always in coach camp, didn't I? To the pros, like, you're allowed to make money. Like, there isn't a profession where people aren't selling their services for money. And so for some students, back to that point, you know, if you pound strokes gained or stats at them, you will turn them off. So there's always that balance, isn't it, between I want this person to get better, so I want them to come back. I'm not going to get them to do stats because I think that'll make them just disappear forever. It's being able to always bend and move with that student. But I totally agree. The amount stats is still in its infancy with amateur golfers, isn't it? Really, like the percentage using stats to help them with coaches would be minuscule. My time on the European Tour range is I was absolutely shocked at the amount of pros. They all kind of used it because they use a different system that they pay into via the European Tour. Their understanding of it was limited, and I found that so frustrating to stand on that range where I just literally wanted, like, just give me the stats. I won't charge you, just give me the stats. We'll look at them with your coach. There'll be holes where they're just stood on that range banging ball after ball after ball, and I used to just think, oh, you know, as a tour pro, they're talking 0.1% to get better. They are talking shaving legs if you're a cyclist. They are talking wearing that hat if you're a cyclist. You know, that's what you've got to do to be better if you're that good. I think stats has got a massive potential to grow over the next few years, hopefully, to get into the arms of more coaches and then in turn students, because I think there's, like you say, low hanging fruit. There's so many gains can be had. Yes,
totally agree. What else you got?
I've got a question. I'm just trying to look at the question. Mark Wood, Golf Academy. I did that last year with a new client who wanted to get his handicap down from 6. We just looked at stats for the first 2 weeks and then put a plan together for him. From that, he reduced down to 4. Mark Wood, Golf Academy. And I totally agree. If you've got that student who wants to get better, you have to start there, because if you don't, you're guessing. It'd be like me going to the doctor and then not running any tests.
Yeah.
Like me going to the doctor and them saying, well, I'm going to give you this pill. What does that pill do? Oh, that'll clear your ears. Well, there's nothing wrong with your ears. Yeah, but we'll start there. And okay, give you this pill, and that'll make your hair, you know, be nicer. Well, that ain't going to work, is it? You know, like, they're going to do their tests, aren't they? And then they're going to go, right, you need to, you know, whatever will be improved if you do this exercise. Oh, cool. They know the point. Golf pros sometimes, I think, are scared to do tests because it's about, and this leads us to, I mean, the biggest thing that changed my teaching, I don't know if it's the same for you as well, one of the joint biggest things, and it all kind of stepping stones to this, I don't do lessons that are less than 2 hours anymore. I just wouldn't do them. I do 2 hours and longer, and there's still plenty of coaches that I talk to who would say, oh, I wouldn't know what to do for 2 hours. Well, if you collect stats, you absolutely do know what to do for 2 hours. And if you've got enough tools in your toolbox, you absolutely will know what to do in 2 hours. And it, like, the students love it. The level of commitment, knowing that you're going to spend that amount of time or more with them, sells more lessons, doesn't scare people off. It makes people want to commit more to you. It might scare the odd fringe golfer away that you think you need, but if you're doing 2 hours rather than 1, you don't need as many golfers to come, do you, if you think about it? So that's one of the biggest things for me is my lessons moved to basically morning or afternoon sessions or 2 hours. A lot of that was to do with lots of people were traveling, because obviously they come from all around the world for watching the content. You know, to travel for a day and come for an hour lesson just seemed pointless. But as I started doing longer lessons, it was so obvious that we could actually get things done. Because I used to say to them, you know, I could go into an office tomorrow. Are they going to teach me their job in a half an hour or an hour? not even close, are they? I'm going to need a morning before I even begin to know what I'm doing. So spending more quality time with your students, I think, is a great way for pros.
Agreed.
You
know, I teach a lot of 3-day schools, Mark, and I've been doing that for about 5 years now. Before I started teaching 3-day schools, I always thought to myself, well, that's too much information that you're unloading on the golfer, and it's just not really going to work. And it actually doesn't work that way. I found that the most productive day in a 3-day golf school is day 3. And the reason why day 3 seems to work is because on day 1, people are going, I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
On day 2, they go, yeah, I'm pretty sure. On day 3, they say, get away from me, leave me alone. I know exactly what I've got to do, and I'm out of here.
They
get the message, and it's not so much lots of information. It's lots of versions of the same information. And people leave with that, you said the word commitment to, I know exactly what I'm doing wrong. I know why it's wrong, and I've got this toolbox to help me get to where I need to get to. And really, I've been so amazed at the success that people have had with 3-day schools or longer term lessons where they really get immersed into what they need.
Yeah, totally. And I've got Craig Miller Golf here. Totally agree. Lessons should be longer. I do 50 minutes. Would love to do longer. Just hard to convince our pupils in Germany. And Craig, I would say to you, every step I've gone down in my career, it's been hard to, like when I started YouTube 12 years ago, I used to get hate from pros. Every pro has a YouTube channel now. When I started doing videos, you would get hate from audience because, you know, you're saying face the path and they don't know what that means. You can re-educate your students. So if you are teaching, if you're teaching 20 students a week and you're doing 50 minutes and you change that to 2 hours, well, you really need to do 10 of them now. So 10 of them don't need to get it and you're the same money. And if 12 or 15 of them get it, you're winning and they're getting better lessons. I think you've just got to, golf pros are very good at getting stuck. They're very good at getting in a rhythm that they like, and then they're not challenging themselves or pushing. And it's the ones that push are the ones they're often watching on platforms and what have you, not the ones who sit back. I used to tell this story when we did Coach Camp. I worked my hardest to try and become the busiest golf coach I could ever be. I was doing 90 half-hour lessons a week when I was in London, like crazy busy, just teaching constantly. So I achieved my goal. And I achieved my goal and I was the unhappiest I'd ever been. Because it was like, I've got no time to do anything. I'm the kind of person who's always having ideas, want to try different things. And I'm so busy teaching Jim how to stop topping it that I just couldn't have a new idea. So I just ran away from that. Like did 2 or 3 years of that, brain starting to fry, and kind of rebuilt myself, if you like. So don't be afraid if you're getting it wrong. If 50 minutes and you think they won't do 2 hours, you'll be shocked. Out of your 20 students, 50 students, you will get enough who will do 2 hours. Because basically all you're saying is, I want to help you more. There isn't many dedicated people who you're teaching who won't want more help. The ones who don't want more help, I remember saying this at Coach Campus once. Remember the lady we had to teach in Europe? And I turned around and said to the people, this is no disrespect to the lady, and it wasn't to do with her being a lady or a man. She stated that she practices once a month at the most. And I turned to the group of pros and said, I wouldn't want her as a lesson. And they looked at me like I'd literally sworn at them, because they're all thinking, get as many lessons as you can. No. Get as many as the right ones that fit your business. That might be loads of her, but for me, it was loads of people who wanted to do all morning sessions and practice every week, not once a month, and then she might not turn up for a month, and so on and so forth. So absolutely, to that person there, don't be afraid to just give it a little push. You'll be amazed, I think, how people respond.
I agree. Whether it's raising your prices or changing your time, I think it sends a message that you as a coach are all in.
Yeah.
You're not just looking to have people in and out the door. It's, you want to develop this relationship. You want to make long-term, long-lasting changes. And that's what you stand for when you do that. Mark, one of the questions I've seen is, what can people do whilst at home and they're away from the golf course, and some people can't get out. And just a couple of ideas before I let you go on this. I'm big at the moment on what I call general principles. Okay. And to me, golfers, what are general principles? General principles are things that you and I and Rory McIlroy and Joe Bloggs down the street can work on, and we would get better.
Yeah.
Club speed.
Yeah.
Work on club speed. Impact location. You can roll up balls of paper, and I can stand here and I can whack them down the hallway, and mark up the face and see where you're hitting them on the face. Impact location. I think putting touch. Just totally. Working on controlling how far the ball goes, putting on the carpet in the kitchen is something that we can do. I know you've got a ton of ideas.
Yeah, so my two that I'm actually doing, so I've got one of these kids that I'm swinging every day. So this is like a speed sticky thing. It's not a speed stick, it's a swing speed golf. So I'm trying to get faster because it'd be fun to show the development. And then the other thing is, because my weakest suit as an adult, unfortunately, is my chipping. I'm really digging into this as deep as I can, working on different fields. And I did a video the other day where I'm actually starting to get some of those feelings I used to get when I was a kid, where I was a good chipper, back. So again, I'm trying to find that positive from that negative. For other people, definitely the speed stuff. If they're not good at striking, any stability drills, swinging without your shoes on, getting your feet on some cushions and swinging stuff as fast as you can, seeing if you can keep that kind of pressure in the ground working for you to any kind of balance. That always helps people with their strikes, I find. And the other thing as well is there's plenty of coaches out there at home, bored, want to offer you services. If you've got any spare money or you still are earning, maybe have an online lesson. It's not something I'm doing, but there'll be plenty of coaches out there if you look. And then they'll give you some things to actually focus on. And you're probably going to get the best price you've ever got on a lesson at the minute, because golf pros just want to teach,
Exactly.
That's why in talks I have to tell them to remind them to make money, because 90% of them literally just love teaching and the money's secondary. And then after a few years, they moan they're not earning enough money. But golf pros you're watching, you're allowed to do both. And for the students watching, there are plenty of golf pros out there who do want to help you still. So maybe just try and find some, send you a swing, see if you can get an online lesson, and then tailor that indoor practice around whatever they give to you to work on. Because putting, chipping, swinging for me at speed is definitely something that I'm actually quite enjoying in my daily life at the minute. That's what golf's become for me. It's no different to what I'm doing with my business and what hopefully the golf pros are doing in their business. I'm trying to position myself so when the doors open again, I'm at the front of the door and I'm 2 miles an hour faster. And I'm now going to up and down 4 more times than I used to. So I'm running faster. I'm not sitting here thinking this is the worst thing ever, which it is. I'm trying to just flip it, because this is going to end and we're all going to be golf pros again. And you want to come out of this better, because you are got great time to learn and all the rest of it at the moment, I think.
Brilliant. I love that advice, Mark. And I got to tell you, one thing I didn't know about you, guitar, mate.
I love my guitars. Love them.
Are you a blues guy or what?
I'm everything. My music taste is so diverse. Literally, if it's a good song, I want to play it. So my influences growing up, I'm a massive Beatles fan, so they made me want to play the guitar, listening to their music and just want to play that song. Massive Neil Young fan, acoustic bass. That's what I generally would play. I do a bit more electric now, but I was generally acoustic. Every Neil Young song I heard, I just wanted to play it because it's beautiful. So that as I started learning when I was about 14, secondary school. And the guitar for me, my family are not musical at all. Instruments are things that were never, ever around the house. So I just bought like a £30 guitar from a secondhand store. Never had a lesson in my life, just taught myself. It's like one of my most proud things that I've done as just me, not parents influenced. Music's always been a popular thing in my house, but not playing. So my guitar for me is just, it's a total, where golf for some is their release, the guitar for me is my, like, I go to a different place when I'm playing that. I love it. I love it. Like that's when I travel, the biggest thing I miss, apart from family, is my music, playing music and listening. When I get on the road, I totally miss it. I get back and like music's on in every room straight away, kind of stuff.
So if you're going to be playing music in your house later today, what you most likely to play?
At the moment, good question. Now I'm really liking Kurt Vile at the moment, so I'm learning lots of his songs. He's very similar to Neil Young, basically, so on his rockier side. So a bit of Kurt Vile I'm learning, and then like I said, I'll dip into I use iTunes for my music provider. And I'll dip into any genre, just listen. I'm not afraid of genres. I'll listen to anything. If it's a good song, I'll learn it or listen to it. So my music taste is quite diverse.
Okay, mine too. I'm going to go look up Kurt Vile.
Vile.
And I want you to check out an old blues guy by the name of Freddie King.
Freddie King.
There were three Kings, Albert, BB, and Freddie. Check out.
Well, obviously, I know BB.
Yeah, they were known as, they were not related, but they were known as the Three Kings. And
it's a bit of blues.
Check out Freddie for some big time blues.
I like that.
He's got on YouTube. He's got the monster wing collar. You know, like halfway down his chest. It's magic. It's magic. You'd like
I will look him up, definitely.
Freddie King. Mark, a couple of the questions I've seen kind of scrolling by talk about technology, and when somebody comes for a lesson with you, I'll certainly think along these lines too. When someone comes for a lesson with you, what numbers are you looking at typically?
Oh, it's interesting. People often ask me that. I'm looking at all numbers collectively, and then I used to play a game when I was teaching all the time of how many of them in my head. I used to play a game. I used to play two games actually, which I'll tell you. First game I used to play, shake hand, few questions. I would write down what I think their numbers are before watching a swing, turn it upside down, and I would tell them, I've written something down, I'll show you that in about 5 minutes. So I
This is before they swing?
Yes.
Oh.
So what shape shot do you hit? Do you hit the ground? I'm topping it. You know, they would say, like, I'm cutting everything to the right, and I fat a few, top a few, doobie-doobie-doo, and I just think, right, they're probably there, and there. So I'd write some key numbers down, path, face to path, angle of attack, if you like. And then I would reveal it, and I got quite good at that. I used to tell them it's like a card trick, basically.
Yeah.
Because you can read people if you see enough people, can't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can really read if they understand what their bad shot is or not. Because you get those students, what's your bad shot? They go, oh, I haven't really got one. And then they hit shots and they're like just slicing everything. You think, oh, have you not seen that you're slicing every shot? You know, because they're obviously not analysing. And then the next game I used to play is, what number can I change that changes 3 or 4 others?
Yeah.
And I love that game. So literally you've got someone who's 12 across, face 3 to 10 open to the path. So they pull or they slightly overcut. And they're like standing the club up, you know, massively.
Yeah.
And I used to think, right, what sentence can I deliver that will ideally change all 3, or if not, knock 2 off? And I used to love that game, because what happened, and I used to get so frustrated online when launch monitors first came out, is people would say, oh, it's too technical. You know, I don't want a lesson like that. It's too technical, too hard. And I used to think, if you watch my lessons, I use the most untechnical terms and language that I've ever learned before I use launch monitors. So someone swinging way left, face open to a path, I would say to them, have you tried swinging to the right? And they would go, what? Just swing to the right for me, can you? And then see what comes out of that. Like, I was using such basic language, and then being able to quantify that basic language by measuring. So I don't look for one number. I definitely look collectively. When you teach a lot and you start seeing patterns, don't you? Because you get the same fault over and again. Toga, so dynamic lie, I would call it. TrackMan now calls it swing plane, I think, don't they?
TrackMan's got dynamic lie now.
It has, is it cool? Yeah, so dynamic lie. I would like to know, right, here's a question for everyone. Who was the first person to ever call it dynamic lie?
Could it perhaps be you?
Well, I think it might be. I don't know if it is, but I feel like no one's, because Trapman used to call it vertical swing plane, didn't they?
Well, they still have that. They still have swing plane.
No, they called it vertical swing plane, which no one understood. So they then changed it to swing plane.
Correct.
Which people still weren't quite getting it, and they've now got dynamic lie.
Yeah.
But because my machine always measured dynamic lie, because I'm a quad, GC quad or GCHNT, so I've got my dots, it's measuring the lie, and it would just call it lie, and I would call it in videos dynamic lie. And I'd never heard anyone call it that before.
Okay, cool.
But anyway, that's just a little question. I don't know, but I would like to know if anyone's got any documented case before one of my videos that say it. But dynamic lie was one of those numbers that I would look at a lot, because it's one of those numbers that students have never practiced, and they didn't even know it was something they could practice. They didn't even know they could practice delivering the club at a different lie. Everyone knows a takeaway 2 inside or 2 outside. People know club path, out to in to out. People know open faces, closed faces. People know top in. People know fat in. If I would say to people, look, I can hit one where I hit with a club flat. I can hit one where I put the toe in the air and I hit it, and I can hit one where I deliver it heel down. I can control dynamic lie, and I don't influence path, so I can separate them out. I can make them 2 separate measurements, which is what they are. And the amount of students who just didn't get that was just fantastic, because that is such a good game for people to play with their students. If you can't dissect path from dynamic lie, from face, manipulate them all individually, golf is very, very difficult. And even if a good player can't articulate it, try it with your better players. I want you to deliver one 0 path, 0 face with the toe down. They'll do it. They won't be able to articulate what they're doing, but they can separate them out. So dynamic lie definitely was one I used to always have in my head that I wanted to check.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mark, what do you look for in a dynamic lie? Let's say the lie angle of the club is 62 degrees. Is there something you're looking for? Do you want it to be a little toe down, a little flat? What are you looking for?
So iron, generally I want it, if their club's a custom fit, we're going for that 0-ish kind of angle.
Okay.
You know, and that is another interesting point, and another little pattern that I used to find. Have you had your clubs custom fit? Yes. They were toe down in everything because they stood the club up, and they had 4-degree upright clubs and were still toe down in stuff. Yeah. And that used to drive me mental. And that laid me on to do some of the shaft questioning that I did in videos that often upsets people, because, you know, I would give people who toe end the club down, I would give them the opposite lie and tell them to try and get it going flat, not make it more upright for them. That makes them toe end it down even more often. So it
feeds the cycle, so to speak.
Correct. You're correct. It encourages them to get their hands higher.
Yeah.
So when they were not delivering, I mean, the one that throws me is when they deliver toe up. Like, you don't get many of them.
No.
Like, you get a toe up, and I'm like, whoa, I haven't got the handbook on this one. I now need to think on my feet. Toe down constantly. And that's to do with how people manage loft during their swing. They have to toe it down to try and get the wrist angles, to get the face kind of squaring up or marrying to whatever path they're swinging on. So generally it was people's use of loft, and then in turn people's use of power. So people will stand the shaft up a lot when they're trying to hit it really hard. So like long drivers do it, those kind of things, with the pressures they're putting through the shaft to try and add speed. Because I used to get people who are serial toe downs, or it's the 0 with a driver. That one used to get me. Like, so I'm about 8 toed up with a driver. Okay. Unless you're really tall, like 5 toed up is like the least I would want to see. You get some guys and girls are presenting 0 with drivers, so they're really lifting handle to deliver. I used to get them to hit 50-yard pitches with their driver, you know, so much more like a connected round their body pitch skill swing. They never delivered toe down then. Toe was always up then. So I just think, it's how they want to put power through the shaft that's making them. You take their power away and they deliver sensibly. You ask them to then hit it to the back of the range again, and they put this pressure through the shaft that stands it up. So it's like, it's getting them to try and work out how to get their power in a different way. So I'll get their body turning differently. get them to use some different lofts in their wrist, so they're not presenting loads of loft and then needing load of speed to get it to go X distance.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it was always all the numbers, but I was always pinpointing 1 or 2 to try and change like 3 or 4 or 2 sets. And that's the game I used to love playing.
I always say to my students, if I can push the right button, this whole keyboard's going to light up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
all
that's a great explanation. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And I say to Matt, who I work a lot with, when he first started working with me, I used to say, it's just sentences, Matt. I have a book in my head of X amount of sentences. Right, this guy or girl is 12 across. Right, this sentence tends to work with them best. It's almost like a black book, you know, almost like a chat-up line book, I used to joke to him. So when I say I'm an astronaut, I generally do better than when I say I'm not an astronaut. So do you know what I mean? It was like you have these lines that work. There's always people that fall outside of them, and that's the bit about moving and being dynamic, which I love as well. But like, you know, if you were going to chuck your net over the biggest group of people, it's like this line fixes the most people. And I play that game online. I do. People ask, how many people do I teach each week? Well, millions, basically. So the fact that you don't think an online video or online lesson is worth anything, that's a different argument to me. I'm going to give some information via one of my pieces of content. I want to be able to stand up in front of you and be proud of it. I want to stand up in front of anyone and be proud of it. So trying to deliver that bit of information so it covers the bigger audience while at the same time is educating them is like part of the best skill for me of doing online content. Unfortunately, online content is moving away from that. I've seen it kind of move away from that. Unfortunately, it's moved lots more into, well, I don't know where it is at the moment. It's not in a great spot, unfortunately, I think. But when it started, you had people like Joe Mayo coming on and just giving great advice. You were about, you know, people coming on and sharing some really good information. And unfortunately, at the minute, there's less and less of them and more people who just want to, like, you know, hit a smoke kipper with a, you know, 20-old smoke kipper with a, you know, they're just ridiculous things that don't help anyone. But yeah, it's for me, it's about casting, having those sentences is as trying to tick, like you say, light the keyboard up. It nails it, basically.
Yeah. How can you say as little as possible and light the keyboard up? That's really what it's about, I think. When you have, as a coach, when you have a massive toolbox, you're able to say as little as possible, get the keyboard to light up, the ball flight changes, the golfer jumps all in, they immerse into what you're saying, and now you're off to the races.
Yeah, and you win them straight away, don't you? And it's that trust, like you can see you win that trust straight away. They literally are now wanting to go, right, oh, let me hit a 5-iron. Do I do the same thing? Like as soon as you light them up, you can see them just literally going ding, 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 right, driver, 3-wood. I want to do that with a hybrid. Do I do it with my wedge? What do I like? And that's such an exciting moment when you're teaching, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I love, you know, because golfers are like, okay, can I try that? Is that going to work with the driver? Sure it is. One of my favorite type of students is the student who rocks up on the tee and says, I've never hit a draw in my life.
Yeah, I love that one. I totally love that one.
This is going to be a great lesson because I guarantee you're going to hit one. They're like, oh, a lot of people have said that to me.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I was teaching full time, when someone would come in and I was always a little bit wanted to be the best coach. So I would say, like, have you had lessons before? Yes. Where did you have them? And they would tell me where they have them. And we all have opinions of other coaches. Like, that's just human nature, isn't it? If we voice them or not is another thing. But I remember just singing, and they would say, oh, I've never drawn the ball, and I've always wanted to. And I used to say, I will get you drawing in 2 shots. If you can play better golf or not, that's a different question. But I can get you drawing in 2 or 3 shots. And you used to be, the amount of times I used to hit on that, and again, you light them up. You turn them on, basically. You can see them just like going, I've had a million lessons and never done that. Like, how have you done that? And I would calm them down, like, you know, this might not make you a better golfer. You might be a better golfer cutting it, but we won't know until we get you drawing it. Yeah. That's another. I used to get that student, end of the lesson, I would see draws, and I would see their draws are more erratic. And they would say, you know, should I draw it then or fade it? And I would say to them, well, look, your toolbox has got bigger. You can fade it. You do that without trying. And you're quite consistently hitting fairways, but it's a bit shorter and you lose the odd one to the right. When I get you to draw it, yeah, it goes a little bit further because you change your dynamic loft and you hit up in a different way. So, yeah, you get slightly better launches, but you are more erratic. So now, the narrow hole, why don't you fade it? The wide open one, the par 5, give the draw a go. It's not just the information I give you, it's how you then apply it, and when you apply it is as important to that student. And that's something I used to love trying to make them stress, because obviously lessons before for them were built more around the ideas of do this and you will be better. Like, that's something I very rarely say to students. I will often be saying, do this and we'll see if it makes you better. Because it made Jane better and it made Paul better, but Brian was worse. So I don't know if you're a Jane, Paul or Brian, because your personality has to be worked into this, and how much you're going to practice and when you're going to choose the information to use it and those kind of things. So, and that's the beauty of coaching. That is the beauty of it. That's the best.
It really is. It's so fun.
It's that working that person out and making them better is so much more than just the toolbox. That's part of making you better at that process. But you've got to understand the person as well.
100%, Mark. Mark, hey, you are a legend.
No, I
haven't seen you for so long.
Did you say legend then, or legend?
I said leggy, a legend. I hope we can get together one of these days.
Yes.
And just, you know, if not, do some coaching together. Maybe just have a few beers and
totally,
and tell some stories. Please send regards to Coach Lockie for me.
Will do.
And keep up the good work, Pods. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thanks
it's
for having
amazing
me.
when I listen to you, I go, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. So everything you say is kind of my feeling and what I think, and there's not many people that I can say that to. So it resonates with me, and I know your message, your information resonates with a lot of people. So really, thanks so much for sharing, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone in the comments, the questions and everything. Good luck, everyone, and stay safe and all that. And definitely remember, this ends and you're still golf pros. Let's still go forward. You can still go forward at the minute. So, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time, Andrew.
Thanks, Mark. And just a note for everybody watching, I'm going to record this. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Mark, I'll tag you and send it over and have you share it too. So if everyone wants to rewatch this, all of the sessions I'm doing this week, I'm recording and plopping on YouTube.
Fantastic. Well, on your channel, yeah?
Yes.
We'll look out and I will give it a retweet and follow and the rest of it.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
No problem. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, mate. Stay safe, eh?
Bye-bye.